What is up? It's your favorite time of the week, people. It's the Email Design Podcast here, where you can come here and just have your nice home for email design, development, and marketing. We're your hosts. I'm Kevin Mandeville.
And I'm Jason Rodriguez.
And Jason, I mean, we've got a ton to cover today. It feels like there's just been a lot of news we've had to get to over the past few podcast episodes. So let's just jump right into it, man.
Yeah, definitely. So a great fix we're going to kick off the show with from our friend Courtney Fantinato. So a lot of people have probably run into this bug on Samsung's email app where background images aren't being displayed. So she actually figured out a pretty quick, easy fix for it. So if you're using the background image CSS property, you're going to have a URL in there that's calling that background image. And there's a couple of ways you can declare that. You can use no quotes around that URL. You can use single quotes or double quotes. And I feel like most people are used to using double quotes. But Samsung email app, it requires those single quotes around the URL in your background image declaration. And then it'll start working in Samsung's email app as well as everywhere else that it's supported. So good bit of investigative work from Courtney. You can check out a blog post. We'll link to the show notes or go over to our website, CourtneyFantinato.com, and check out the fix there.
I've always used single quotes. Have you used double quotes, Jason?
I feel like I go back and forth. I don't have like a strict rule about it. I used to use no quotes just because I thought it looked cool and stuff and it was nice and clean. But yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag for me.
Yeah, which is weird because I think they're both valid, right? Like under
Yep.
spec, they're all valid. And actually, you don't even need them for the web.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a weird odd bug. But yeah, I mean, easy enough. Just use single quotes, people, and you're done. Mark Robbins, good friend of the podcast, great email detective. He actually found out recently that, not only has Gmail updated recently on one of the past podcasts we covered with their auto linking of addresses and whatnot, but they are actually supporting HTML5 tags now in some places. And it appears to be on the preprocessor side, so not an app update or anything. So it seems like Gmail they're actually working on some stuff, that seems like they're changing and modifying a few things. So just some quick notes. It's not going to impact your general targeting, so you can still do general sibling selector div foo for Gmail targeting as a catch-all. However, you cannot do the U adjacent sibling selector class of body class of foo as a way to just sort of target Gmail webmail. So and Mark's concern was that he wanted to be able to target separately Gmail webmail and then Gmail on Android. So what you can do is you can do div plus U plus a class of body for Gmail webmail. So div adjacent sibling selector underline for the doc type, adjacent sibling selector class of body. That's going to target Gmail webmail. Or Gmail on Android, you can do div direct child U adjacent sibling selector class of body, and that'll be Gmail on Android. So div greater than U plus class of body. That's Gmail on Android. And actually, we don't have it right now, Jason, but I'll create those as community snippets and link to them in the show notes.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Cool to see Gmail making some more updates. We're also waiting for a couple more to provide for like interactive support and stuff like that. But good to see that they're working on their engine.
There isn't like a full list of support yet on the HTML5 tags either, but things like main nav aside, I think they're not actually being stripped anymore. They're being recognized. So, something to experiment with.
Yep.
All right. So Google came out with and announced their new Pixel 2 phones, which are going to be hitting the market, and we have some new dimensions coming into play. So the regular Pixel 2 is going to actually be fairly standard. It's actually going to have a 1920 by 1080 dimension. So we're pretty much used to that, especially in the video world, that 16 by 9 ratio. It's going to be 5.7 inches, so pretty standard compared to the iPhone, and have a 441 PPI. So that's pretty high for that. The Pixel 2 XL, which is like their kind of, what an iPhone Plus equivalent would be, is actually where it gets really interesting, because this is going to be a 2,880 by 1440 dimension. It's going to be 6.2 inches. And get this, it's going to have a 538 ppi. Comparatively, the iPhone 10 is 2,436 by 1125, only 5.8 inches, so it's only an inch bigger than the regular Pixel 2, and it only has a pixel density or a pixels per inch of 458. So Pixel 2 PPI of 441 for the regular one. iPhone 10, a little bit better than that at 458 PPI, but the Pixel 2 XL, 538 PPI. So, I mean, take that, Apple, trying to, market the super retina of the iPhone 10. The pixel density is just starting to get crazy, Jason.
Yeah. So they were out retinaed by Google in this case. So yeah, definitely interesting to keep an eye on. There's so many devices out there. It's getting insane, these displays that are, coming out in the wild now. I remember, like years ago, having just a massively simple display or a smaller display, and everybody was making their web designs like 800 pixels wide and stuff like that, so it's crazy to see how that's evolved over time. Definitely something to keep an eye on. I'm sure we're going to be trying to get our hands on a device as soon as possible and start testing on there too, to make sure that everything's working. If there's any weird tricks we have to count for, that we can write a blog post or a community post on that.
So, but watch out for retina images. I mean, definitely. Yep. I mean, this is something where source set, I think, is going to become more and more important to use for images to progressively enhance for retina. Look out for media queries. I mean, it's pretty soon. I mean, all these phones, it feels like, are just going to be so big. It's basically, desktop. So it's You got to watch out for it. Do you think anybody's going to buy the Pixel, though? I mean, nobody really bought the last Pixel.
That's a good question. Yeah, I don't think it's going to get anywhere near the adoption of like any other devices out there, despite Google's attempts to try to get in hardware and like grow their hardware business. But I think early adopters and tech people might get it. The camera's supposed to be amazing on it, but still, I feel like for most people, the iPhone is where it's at, or like regular Android devices. Yeah. So I don't think it's something we're gonna have to worry about too much, but definitely something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it actually, I mean, they look like nice phones, and obviously it's using Android, so it's using a popular OS. It's so hard to break the inertia and the momentum of people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, another cool tool for you guys to check out there. This one's called Email Monster. You can find it at emailmonster.io. But it's really cool, kind of drag and drop editor for templates. They come preloaded with, maybe 24 or so email templates that you can build on top of. Free to use. You can just go in there, find a template that you like, that you want to start editing. You can click on the template. It opens up this WYSIWYG editor that's really nice, really functional. You can drag and drop things like text, buttons, dividers. You can insert your own HTML, dump images in there, style it all with just that WYSIWYG editor mentality. And then you can just save and download those templates and use in your ESP, which is pretty cool. So yeah, if you're not comfortable coding from scratch, it's just another tool in your tool belt that you can use to quickly generate email templates and start using them in your own campaigns.
Yeah, and I'm pretty certain it's just using BeFree's editor under the hood. So if you've ever used BeFree.io, I mean, these are probably just different templates that you can get started with. It's powered by this Unroll service as an editor, but I'm pretty sure they're just reselling or retooling what BeFree has done. So I'm not really entirely sure the situation there, but you're basically going to get the same experience of BeFree, which is one of the best sort of drag and drop editors out there. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right, so I just want to take a quick break here, let you guys know about Litmus, and thank Litmus for sort of inherently sponsoring the podcast. We both work at Litmus. Litmus, all about email testing and analytics, really. It's a full email creative platform. So you can go to litmus.com/gift card and put the coupon code podcast, and you can get 14 days free trial of Litmus. And this is an offer you're not really going to find anywhere else from us. And I don't even know if we still should be doing it, Jason, but we just keep doing it, and it's working out for our listeners. So take advantage of it. You're not going to find a lot of free trials that long around Litmus. So litmus.com/gift card, coupon code podcast. And one of the things I want to just sort of promote today is we have a brand new Chrome extension with Litmus, which allows you to test with Litmus wherever you are. So if you want to test local HTML emails directly on your desktop using your own editor, whether that's Dreamweaver, Sublime Text, Atom, Coda, brackets, I mean, heck, Notepad, if that's what you fancy. It doesn't matter. It works right alongside any editor that you want, so that you don't even need to use the Litmus web app. You can be testing with your editor right on the desktop. It's a super iterative experience, and you really get to test right where you want to be. And it even works with things like frameworks of MJML or Zerb, task runners of Grunt or Gulp. And then you can also test inside your ESP. So if you're using, at least today, MailChimp, Campaign Monitor, Salesforce Marketing Cloud, IBM Watson / Silverpop, aka, and Eloqua, if you're using any of those, you can just click on the Chrome extension icon when you're in a campaign, and it's going to generate a full Litmus checklist for you. It's going to not only give you the previews that you've come to know and love about Litmus, but it's going to give you a link check, tracking check, check your images, make sure those aren't too big if you're trying to make them look good on this Retina stuff, and really just let you test right inside your ESP. So you don't have to go through the hassle of, okay, I need to set up this campaign, send a test email into Litmus. Okay, I see this, I need to make a change, so I need to go back into my ESP, then resend a test. It's super iterative with the extension. You open it up and you can iterate as you go right inside your ESP. So it's really frictionless. So just check out the Chrome extension, litmus.com/extension. And again, free 14-day trial. Check it out, litmus.com/gift card, and input the coupon code podcast.
Awesome. On top of that little bit of stuff, we'd love to make our readers aware of some newer jobs on the community job board. So if you're if you're in the market for a new job, you're unhappy where you are, you want to find a new challenge in your career, the Litmus community job board at litmus.com/community/jobs is definitely the place to go. It's all email industry jobs. So a couple of recent ones, the Michael J. Fox Foundation, which is, searching for a cure for Parkinson's disease, is hiring an email operations officer. It's full-time, based out of New York City. I feel like that'd be a really rewarding job and probably a really interesting challenge. So
great
if you're
cause.
In New York, great cause. If you're in New York and want to help out with Michael J. Fox Foundation, definitely check out that. We'll put in the show notes. Major League Soccer, if soccer's your jam, which it used to be mine for sure. I played soccer for years growing up. But Major League Soccer is looking for an email marketing manager, also in New York City, also full-time. So definitely check that one out as well. And then Rack Room Shoes, which is in Charlotte, North Carolina, is looking for an email deployment specialist. So they have a great overview of their job, everything they need there.
Zach Brown is an active email geek in the Email Geek Slack. So shout out to Zach. And if you have any questions, you can definitely hit up Zach in the Email Geek Slack. So yeah, shout out to Zach.
Awesome. And then the last one is Lending Tree, also in Charlotte, actually. So 2 in New York, 2 in Charlotte. They're looking for an email developer full-time as well. So if you want to, help people get lending and get loans and all that good stuff, mortgages, then definitely check that out as well. I feel like that'd be a really interesting kind of high volume job and pretty interesting challenge for anybody that's interested. So again, just check out litmus.com/community/jobs and find your next gig.
No dress code for Lending Tree. You can wear your flops, they say.
There you go. Awesome. I like it. Shorts and flops. That's all you need. All right. Some interesting. I kind of like this story. It's funny to me. Yes. There's an update on Salted Hash Top Security News by Steve Reagan, who is writing about a company called Mimecasts discovering their newly discovered email exploit, which isn't actually a vulnerability. It's more of a feature. So this Boston-based email security firm, Mimecasts, published a paper about this new vulnerability in HTML emails emails wherein malicious attackers could use external CSS to swap out content in the email, or, kind of change the display type of from none to inline or block or whatever, so they could show hidden code after the email's actually been sent. So this is something, in the email world we use for this is what drives those dynamic emails. This is what's behind some of the really cool things that we've been able to do in email campaigns. So they make a lot of fuss about this being a vulnerability, but really it's how HTML and CSS functions. It's nothing that's really, I don't see this as being a really malicious vulnerability within email. A lot of email clients even block this behavior by default, so it doesn't work everywhere to begin with. And it's more, it is that feature. It's how we have dynamic emails working. It's how we can swap out content. It's how people like Seal Gross can do these really cool advent calendars for American Express, or I think that's the functionality behind, our Twitter feed and stuff like that in our email campaigns. So an interesting kind of breakdown of what they think the problem is and how it's not really a huge problem. Justin Kuo from over at Fresh Inbox actually weighs in later on at the bottom of the story and kind of makes it clear that this isn't really a vulnerability. It's more or less a feature, and it's been around for a long time. So really, I think it's a lot of fuss about something that isn't a vulnerability and something that we want to keep around and see, if not still supported, even more widely supported across email clients, so that we can make better emails.
Oh, no, not external CSS. Oh,
yeah.
No. I mean, come on, get lost. This is hysterical. They're calling this Rope Maker, a software vulnerability.
Yeah. I love how they give it their name.
Lost. Get out of here with this garbage. Mimecasts out of Boston. This is disrespectful as somebody who's here in Boston. Come, give me a break. Oh, my goodness. Oh, Jason, you know what? I just did a study. Breaking news. I have found that images are now vulnerable to emails. Did you know images, they can be dynamic? You can just change them at any point and display the change. Get lost with this
all my shit
out of
now.
here.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. But this is what we have to deal with for actual email clients, right? Like, this is quite honestly the approach Gmail has taken for a very, very long time.
True. Yeah.
Not necessarily on the external CSS front, because webmails have a little bit of a different concern when it comes to external CSS, and none of them support it. But this is very much the same line of thinking with the media queries and display block, lack of support, display none, lack of support. Excuse me. This has been the same type of mentality, but absolutely hysterical that they just took external CSS, called it Rope Maker, and was like, oh, this is, they just tried to get free PR out of this. Get lost.
Yeah, I like it. The article is actually really entertaining to read, because they essentially just take them down a peg or two and break down how it's pretty much a giant joke. So yeah, definitely worth reading, and pretty funny article this time around.
Speaking of dynamic content, here is an incredible article over on Medium. This is by Balazs Varga. I'm definitely butchering the name, so I apologize for that. But fascinating article. Talks here about feeding dynamic content to emails through, get this, web fonts. He works at Scarab Research, which is now a part of eMarsis, and they had a hack week. He was inspired by our dynamic Twitter feed that we did in email using external CSS, and was just wondering what are other ways we could inject dynamic content. And this was really interesting, because I was like, well, there's two ways. I've always said there have been two ways. You have images, and then you have external CSS. But he found a third way, and that's with web fonts. So get this. Here's what he did. He created an HTML email. He had a unique sequence of characters, and they were all different HTML entities. So if you can think like ampersand, hashtag XCO semicolon, and then, or the O is a 0. And then you just increment it like 1 all the way up to 255. Then what you can do is, that's wrapped in a span tag essentially with its own, he used an ID for his example. You put a font face in your CSS, and then you reference that font family as a part of that class or ID in this instance. And then what you do is you take you map the glyphs of the content to the unique character endpoints. So let's say in his example, you want to display hello world. Well, what you do is you actually take, the individual characters of those and map those to a specific letter. And then what you want to do is for the unused characters is that those are a 0 width character essentially, so that it only writes out the message that you want. So it's absolutely mind blowing. But this essentially enables you to have dynamic text, and it's being injected through the web font, because what you can do is you can just change the mapping behind the scenes through the font, because the font is the external hosted asset. So, I mean, there are some limitations like around word breaking right now. It does have a limited length. This was an example, an email with 255 characters. So, you do have to be a little bit specific with your size, or kind of have an idea of what the content you want beforehand. You can't exactly copy and paste because it's not an actual, it's not pure HTML text. But it has pretty good support. It works in Android 4.4, Apple Mail, Outlook for Mac, so 2011 and 2016, and then every version of iOS Mail. But I just thought this was mind-blowing, Jason. This was one of the most just interesting approaches, I think, to trying to, again, innovate an email. I wish we had this at our email hacks at Litmus Live this year.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it would have been really cool to see him up there talking about this technique. It's not like a far cry from, things like icon fonts, like Font Awesome or something like that. Kind of takes a similar approach, just using those, those frequently unused characters and those glyphs. But yeah, a little bit involved for my taste. I think I also rely on images and external CSS, but definitely a really cool kind of pioneering technique. And I'd love to see him take it a little bit further and see if he can fix some of those problems. And
I do struggle to sort of see a really useful use case. Just because, I don't know, it seems like most dynamic text that you would want to populate, if you're not going to use images, obviously we have the CSS content approach that we've used, but you could just use RSS feeds that maybe won't be real time upon every open, but I don't know how important that is for everybody. Another area too that I think hasn't been explored a whole lot is iframes. I mean, iframes would have basically the same amount of support as this approach does. And you can't do styling inside an iframe, but if you're just passing pure content, I think that's a big area that people need to explore. It's something that's on my list if I ever have time to get around to playing around with it. But
maybe next year's conference emails will use an iframe.
So it's here's another example. It's you think we've done everything there might be to do with, say, dynamic content, but no, there's more. I find it super encouraging.
Absolutely. Yeah, awesome. Take another quick break. Just to remind everybody to check out all the episodes of the Email Design Podcast. You can go to emaildesignpodcast.com. Check out all the old episodes, all the show notes. That's where we dump all the links to everything we talk about in this podcast. You can also follow along on a couple different channels, depending on your flavor. We're on YouTube. We're also on iTunes and then SoundCloud as well. And if you want to, send in any questions, something's bugging you, you want to hear about us talk about something that you want to know about on the podcast, just hit us up on Twitter. Use the hashtag Email Design Podcast. We're following along there. And just interact with us there, or drop us a line over at the Litmus community, or anything like that. Kevin and I are both on Twitter as well all the time, or the Email Geek Slack channel, something like that, and we'll be happy to talk about it. EmailDesignPodcast.com for all the show notes, all the episodes, or hit us up on Twitter using hashtag Email Design Podcast. All right, a little bit of Microsoft news. It seems like there's always Microsoft news every single week, which keeps us on our toes. But a long-awaited fix for Outlook's notorious emoji problem. So if you've gotten an email from somebody using Outlook and they've tried to use that smiley face emoji, chances are you've just seen the letter J, because Outlook for the longest time up until now, we know they use Microsoft Word as the rendering engine. So it didn't really have good emoji support. So when you use that smiley face emoji, instead of making it an actual true fruit emoji, then it would map it to the Wingdings font, everybody's favorite font, right up there with, Times New Roman, Comic Sans, all that good stuff. So the J in Wingdings is the smiley face. So it would think that it's doing you a favor, mapping that and giving you a smiley face in your email. But other operating systems that don't have Wingdings installed just see that J. So they're finally fixing this after 7 years of this being a problem. So now they're correctly mapping those to actual emoji. So thank God everybody will be able to see the correct message from Outlook users using that smiley face emoji. They won't see that weird J on the end of a line. They'll see that smiley face. So good news for Microsoft. Kudos for tackling the 7-year bug and making your email system that much better. So it's rolling out. Go for it.
Yeah, I was going to say this was not a part of our Litmus Microsoft partnership. So this was not, this wasn't us. We didn't spend any time talking about smiley face emojis. So just so everybody understands the priorities and where we're at with things, that's not something that we tried to do or push. But hey, I think it's a good sign. It's however small a piece of rendering it may be. Hey, at least Microsoft is starting to fix stuff, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And they said it's going to be rolling out over the next year. So you might still see it hanging around for a little while, but better emoji support. I'm always happy about that. Other news, Microsoft LAN, they are giving up on Windows 10 mobile. Their head of Windows 10, Joe Belfiore, announced recently on Twitter that they're going to keep supporting Windows 10 mobile, but they won't be adding any new features or doing any new development on that project. So if you remember, Windows 10 mobile kind of came out with Windows 10. It was their attempt at making apps work universally across, desktop, tablet, and mobile. So it just didn't see the adoption. Microsoft did a lot to try to court developers, court companies, get them building these universal apps that people could use on Windows 10 mobile, and then just didn't really get the market share, didn't get the interest from developers or companies. So they're finally kind of putting the last nail in the coffin, calling it quits on Windows 10 mobile. So I don't think we're going to be seeing any new Windows 10 mobile devices, anything like that. The Windows 10 chief admitted in that same Twitter thread that he had switched to Android himself. Bill Gates recently admitted that he switched to Android. So I think Microsoft, their days on mobile are numbered at this point. So I think that's good news, really, because the adoption wasn't there. Hopefully we can see a little bit more focused Microsoft, putting more of that development resources into things like their desktop tools and Outlook and, some of their web clients, things like that. So, I don't think that's going to affect too many people because the market share was something like 0.03% of the global market, which is basically nothing in the grand scheme of things. But that's your update from Microsoft these days.
More consolidation, better news for us. So a little bit, less fragmentation. And Windows 10, the nice thing about Windows 10 for Outlook's purposes is that it is an updatable model, unlike Outlook, which has a legacy history. As rendering fixes come through our partnership, hopefully at least it can be updated. Although this is even better news that it seems like it's going to just be slowly sunsetted over time. I think this is the path they're heading down now. So that's really good. The fact that we're not going to have to worry about that as much, and that's not going to impact as many users. On top of that, and on top of this news, Office is announcing their next release. So the next version of Office is coming up is going to be 2019. So that will include a new version of Outlook. So this is something to sort of circle your calendars for. It's obviously something that's top of mind for us and something we're talking to Microsoft about. It's a little far away. It's only 2017, but we're getting to the end of it, and 2019 will be here before we know it. So yeah, just kind of get ready. There's going to be a new version of Outlook coming, and hopefully we can get some good changes coming to it. Obviously, sort of no promises right now at this moment, or we don't share anything, but it's circled on our calendars. So just be on the lookout.
Yep. Cool. So to kind of wrap up the show, we usually do our email of the week. This week, it's essentially emails of the week because we're focusing on a collective body of work from the Hillary for America design team. So they put together, after the election, they did some amazing work for the Hillary Clinton campaign. So they dumped all that work on a website called HillaryForAmericaDesign.com, and they actually have an entire section on here, a page devoted to their work in email. So it's fascinating to look through all of the campaigns, not all of the campaigns, but some of the campaigns that they developed and sent throughout this campaign. And I do want to read this. I love this opening paragraph that they wrote, some of the reasons they use email and like some of the effectiveness of email. So they said graphic emails served a variety of functions. While the number one goal was to raise money for the campaign, the emails were also used to celebrate big moments, point out the absurdity of opposing candidates, highlight merchandise in the shop, and relay important information related to voting registration and deadlines. And I really like that because I feel like they see the value of email, whereas a lot of other campaigns or even other companies, retailers, stuff don't really see the value or the multiple values of email. It's not just selling things and raising money. You can use it to celebrate these big wins in your campaign, your company. The one I really like is relaying that important information related to voting registration deadlines. So using it as an educational tool too. But they have these great sections. They point out some of their cool designs, how they use imagery, color, all that stuff. Some of their campaigns related to fundraising, focus on some of the animation they've used in their campaigns. But altogether, collectively, that's just like a massive body of work. It's great to see this all collected. So if you're kind of an email geek in general, or especially a kind of political email geek, which I think Kevin, you and I both are, it's really interesting to see this all wrapped up in one place. And I feel like the campaign, the design team on Hillary's campaign did some absolutely amazing work. It's very well branded. Their use of color and type and imagery is absolutely fantastic. I was kind of sad to see, when they were sending these, most of them were image based. But I know they're working on an extraordinarily tight deadline. So in their case, it might have been easier to just build this stuff out, dump it in an image, and send it on its way. But fascinating to look through here. It's a huge accomplishment and a huge body of work. So definitely a good resource for anybody that wants to look through it or is focusing on a political campaign coming up and wants some good inspiration.
Yeah, I've never subscribed to any political emails
at all.
I've never subscribed to any campaigns. Just kind of not
complete garbage. But they definitely did a good job.
But looking at this, seeing it all in one place, it looks great. I'm surprised that, and granted, these are the highlights, so I understand that too. But I was very impressed with the design of this, just the imagery, the branding, very, on brand, everything was on point there. Like you mentioned, obviously a lot of these are probably all image based. It would have been sweet if they were actual pure HTML, but I think this is just a great example of design, and there's just just there's a lot of different things going on, right? There's just a lot of, if you think about the different types of campaigns you might have to run, they face a lot of different scenarios that they have to go through in a campaign. And it's just really cool to see this. I would love to see more people share and sort of collect their work, the portfolio that they've done, and just share stuff like this, because I think we all benefit and learn from this. And we actually interviewed the email marketing sort of director for for Hillary's campaign in a past episode of the podcast. So you can search for Amanda Litman. It was one of my favorite podcast interviews we've ever done, because it was just crazy insightful over that whole world of political email that I don't know that anybody had ever really talked about before. So
I feel like it is kind of like a black book kind of thing in the email world, and people don't talk about it that much. But she was awesome. Yeah, absolutely fascinating to interview. And she actually has a new book that came out last week, I think, called Run for Something. That's kind of a spinoff of her organization, Run for Something, that's encouraging young people to get involved in politics. But I looked at it at the bookstore the other day. I think I might buy a copy because it was absolutely fascinating. So definitely check that out too. It's Run for Something by Amanda Litman.
Yeah. So politics aside, check out the podcast, check out these emails. I think they're really inspirational here from, an email design perspective. And I guess to end the show on somewhat of a sad note, Jason, R.I.P. AIM. AIM, our good friend, came into our lives, and then it left. It's leaving just like that. 1997 to 2017. Unbelievable. What was your screen name back in the day?
I spent so much time on there. I had a couple. One was Buddha Bass. I was a musician and like most teenagers interested in like weird shit like Buddhism. Buddhism was not weird, but just weird at that time in my life. Senor Guitar, Sam Rodriguez. So that was one of them. I think a handful of others too, but God, so much time on. I always called it AIM. I never said AIM. It was always AIM
Really?
to me. Yeah. I think it might just be like a weird regional thing or something. Like a Midwestern thing, but it was always AIM to me. So yeah. Rest in peace, AIM or AIM. What was your favorite handle?
I miss these sounds so much. Mine was the Consequence 10. 10 was my jersey number in sports, and the Consequence was my street ball nickname.
Nice.
And if you don't know what street ball is, well, I guess you
that
can
seems so fitting for you. Yeah. I'm going to start calling you the Consequence from now on.
If you ever catch me around and there's a basketball around, I can show you some tricks, you know? I mean, for real. I could have been on the Globetrotters in a former life. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's funny. I mean, if we were to do it today, I'd probably be like XX table wrangler XXX. You know?
Yep.
Or I love email LUV like 89. You know, for my birthday. You know, I'd probably do something like that.
Yep.
So,
but now we have Slack. So
yeah, now we have Slack. So, but this is what I mean. Slack. All Slack needs to do just get like an away profile and just some sounds, and we're cracking. We're popping.
Yep. They're getting there.
It's crazy though. AIM was literally the precursor to what Slack is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like how AIM didn't evolve, because AIM could have done all that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was massive back in the day. Yeah.
So
rest in peace. We'll miss you.
Rest in peace. One more time, let's have AIM sign us on and sign us off right here.